Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us on our weekly AJA Zoom event, and welcome to any new people this week, including those who we hope are watching on Facebook. My name is Alan Friedman. Tonight we actually have an apology from AJA President David Adler, who is in Canberra for the Advanced Australia meeting. For those unfamiliar with this organisation, it is a conservative answer to activist organisations like Get Up, which campaign for the far left in this country. David is on the board of Advance Australia, and they're discussing strategies for voting no in the upcoming referendum on an Indigenous voice to Parliament. But on the screen, you can see Robert Gregory, the Director of Public Affairs, who will be co-hosting with me tonight, and also our guest tonight, Ben-Dror Yemini, who is the author of a book called Industry of Lies, a very apt topic given the events in this country over the last 24 hours. The format tonight will be a presentation from Ben-Dror, and then we'll open it up to take questions from the audience. As we always do, we'll mention that if you want to ask a question, you do need to click the reaction icon along the bottom. That electronically raises your hand, and then we can see that you want to ask a question, because we need to give you the option of unmuting before you ask the question. Written questions can be placed on the chat function, and Robert will read some of them out if possible during question time. Now, I often say that according to the narrative of the popular culture of today, Israel is described as a colonial aggressor, where the Jews barged into someone else's country, threw the inhabitants out of their homes and stole their land. We all know that Israel is not perfect, but there is a clear distinction between legitimate criticism and the industry of lies that has emerged from two unlikely sources, or maybe not so unlikely, the media and academia, and this undermines their reputations as bastions of truth and knowledge. Ben-Dror Yemini is an Israeli journalist who focuses on the vast collection of anti-Israel claims. His book is titled The Industry of Lies, and in it he presents an in-depth analysis of the many inaccurate and malicious accusations levelled against Israel and refutes them one by one. He joins us now. Ben-Dror, welcome to Australia via Zoom, and welcome to the Australian Jewish Association.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and thank you for having me. I hope my English will be good enough in order to know, because last time that I was in Australia, I had problems with understanding the pronunciation of some of Australians. But no, your English, your English.
We can understand you perfectly well, Ben-Dror. So if you just, you can do screen sharing.
It's a one-way problem. Sometimes I do not understand you. I hope you will understand me.
Yeah, no, we're good. So just open screen sharing and start when you're ready.
Okay. In a minute, I will begin the screen sharing. Just before that, I want to say some words about the kind of work that I'm doing. And just to make it clear, for many years when I was a bit younger, I was what you might call a peace activist. I went all the way, for example, to meet Yasser Arafat and other Palestinian leaders, even in Tunis, even before the Oslo process, in order to understand, in order to promote peace, which I think we should have one day, even if it's right now impossible. But during my activities, I could hear a lot of voices that were just unbelievable. And I'm not speaking about Palestinians. Palestinians, it's one story. I'm speaking about people from the West. I'm speaking about academics. I'm speaking about journalists. And it really amazed me, because not because of their political views. Views are legitimate. The main problem is with their knowledge, with the distorting of facts, with the lies. I'll give you some example, because to refute lies, believe me, it's simple. It's simple for me. It's people who know the facts. For many other people, it's not clear that we are speaking about lies. But let's begin in order to understand what we are talking about. Okay. Here we are. Here we are. Okay. I hope you all see the screen.
Yes, that's good,
Yes,
Ben-Dror.
okay.
Yes, thank you.
Just to those of you who want to know, I guess you see the front of my book, and we will go on. As I told you, I met so many. Just a minute. Okay, now it is better. Okay. Okay. Just in order to understand what we are talking about, I will skip a lot because we don't have time to see the 7 hours presentation. And they did not give me, you gave me something like between 30 to 40 minutes for the presentation and not more. But my first encounter with what I call today industrial flight was when I read, it was in 2002. I read an article of Professor Ilan Pape. I guess some of you know the name, some of you do not know, but he is one of the leading scholars about the Middle East and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. One of the leading. I mean, I don't think there is one course or seminar in any Western university without his materials and mainly his book about the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. Anyway, in that time, I read the article. It was in 2002, where he wrote that transfer is the official moral option recommended by the IDC. IDC is an academic institution. Transfer proposed by senior Labour Party ministers. Transfer is openly advocated by professors and media commentators, and so on and so on. In that time, until that time, I was a lawyer, but exactly in that year, I began my work as in between a journalist and a researcher. And anyway, now as a journalist, I called him and I told him, dear Professor Pape, somebody published an article on your behalf, but the article is full of lies. Maybe you should call them and correct and tell them that, no, it's impossible that you are signed on this article. Surprise, surprise, he told me, no, I wrote the article, and I was really shocked because I asked him point by point, can you validate something? And it was quite embarrassing because I'm speaking with a professor, and actually he could not validate, even not one paragraph that I'm showing you. At the end of the conversation, I told him, dear Professor Pape, tomorrow I'm going to publish an article about your article, but I will not call you a liar because it's not nice to call somebody a liar. But let me tell you, I will call you a mega liar, which I did. And needless to say that he never took me to court because he knew that every word that I wrote was correct. It was a kind of coincidence because in the very same week, 2 days after, I read another article, again, of an Israeli scholar teaching in Tel Aviv University, article that was published in a very prestigious magazine. And according to him, Itzik Laor, his name, gas chambers are not the only way to destroy a nation. It's enough to develop high rates of infant mortality, which means that we, Israelis, actually committing genocide, but in a very sophisticated way. So I was a kind of, what is happening here? Why this kind of scholars lie? But it was not easy in 2002 because we did not have Google search and not any other thing, but I found, and actually the data shows that infant mortality among Palestinians decreased dramatically because of the cooperation with the Israeli health system, just the opposite, which means that what he published was a blood libel, but it's a blood libel by an Israeli, a Jewish scholar, teaching in an Israeli university, and he even wrote until a year ago regularly for Haaretz newspaper that I guess some of you are familiar with. If we go on, And I began my research about this subject. I didn't know what I'm going to. And then president of MESA, Professor Juan Cole, published an article. And he published it after the commission that was appointed by the Congress in the US, of course. They published their report about the 9/11 attack, terror attack. According to him, the commission report conceived that the attack was as a response to the Israeli attack on Jenin, which means that actually it was because of Israel. Now, there was only one problem, because each one of you can go now to the report, it's online. You will not find the word Jenin in the report. He invented something, but the lie is even much bigger. You are not Israeli, so you do not understand what I'm speaking about. But the Jenin battle was in the year after the 9/11. Just to understand the depths of the lies. When I published my book, the editors in the United States told me, no, it's impossible. So I told them, you should check. You should check every claim of mine, because don't take anything for granted. And it's going on. It's going on. I will skip because we don't have time. Columbia University, just an example. You know, Ivy League University. Here is Professor Joseph Massad saying that he is going to publish only truth, facts, and facts on the ground. And what did he publish? Very interesting. That Tel Aviv is the only Western city that does not have any Arab or Muslim inhabitants. I guess some of you are familiar with Tel Aviv, and you know that you know exactly what Tel Aviv is. He also claimed in that article that Netanyahu called to expel the 1.6 million Palestinians who are Israeli citizens. Well, I went to the speech that he spoke about, and the only one sentence that it was in the UN General Assembly, and the only one sentence that Netanyahu said about the Israeli Arabs was that the Jewish state of Israel will always protect the rights of all the more than 1 million Arab citizens of Israel. How could he conclude that Israel is going to expel them when Netanyahu is saying that Israel is going to protect them? I mean, you have to be a very special scholar in order to do it. I'll tell you something. Almost every year, I have in my speaking tour also the Columbia University. Last time that I was there, I participated in the panel. And of course, I spoke also about their professor, Joseph Massad. And I told them, I'm sorry that I'm saying now my views because it's not part of my lecture, but I told them, I will never forgive you that you forced me to defend Netanyahu. But I did, because sometimes you have to do, or for example, maybe some of you were exposed to this because it was a debate that took place 2 years ago in Australia. And Noam Chomsky, that I guess some of you know, it was immediately after following the reports that Israel is an apartheid state. And now Chomsky, Professor Chomsky participated, and he has his own claim. And let's hear what he said.
Ben-Dror, I'm not sure if you're changing slides. We're only actually seeing slide number 4 on your on our screen. So I'm not sure if you've been moving through them.
Very strange. I don't know why.
Okay, now it's changed. That's
so
it.
you did not see this
No,
slide,
we
for
haven't.
example?
No, we haven't seen these, but that's fine. Just
no,
jump.
it's okay. Anyway, let's continue. Chomsky, in the big debate about is Israel is an apartheid state, claimed that he has the best proof, and the best proof is, unfortunately, you cannot hear it, but the best proof is that, you know, if blacks in the United States, you can see it's written, were excluded from 90% of the territory, it will be called white supremacy, which means in Israel, Arabs are not allowed to buy 90% of the lands, then Israel is an apartheid state. There is only one problem with his claim. It was never was true. I mean, it's a blatant lie. Never happened. Israeli Arabs are allowed to buy. It was to make it accurate. It was until some years ago 93% because of the lands of the JNF, 7%. That were really only 7% for the Jews, but not anymore. For many years now, even the 7%, according to the Supreme Court decision and the Attorney General and so on. Anyway, Arabs are allowed now for many years to buy 100% of the lands. So he is lying in order to prove that Israel is an apartheid state. Let's go on. I will skip it because it's a bit less important. Just one thing before we get to some deeper issues. Let me tell you, many people ask about the closure of the Gaza Strip. And they say, oh, you see what Israel is doing? It's the biggest prison in the world. And I guess you are all familiar with this kind of argument. There is only one problem. It's, again, a blatant lie. Why? Because the international community offered the Palestinians, offered the Hamas, three preconditions, recognizing previous agreements and so on, in order to lift the closure, in order to open the borders. Who said no? Not Israel. Hamas said no. He will never accept the previous agreements that were signed with Israel. We have just to know that the problem is Hamas, not Israel, because so many people, and I'm speaking about pro-Israelis, they don't know the basic facts, and they have always to apologize about what Israel is doing to the Gaza with the blockade, with the siege, and so on. Let's go on. I skip it just to see what we are talking about. Here are three polls from the last year, all of them from the last year. In Germany, 1 of 3 Germans say Israel treating Palestinians like Nazis. In Norway, Norway, it's just the same. Third of the population think that Israel is behaving like the Nazis. In the United States, 40% gave the same answer. Now, where is the problem? They don't really understand the situation on the ground. Where is the problem? The problem is that many times what you see in these polls, that people do not understand what was in the Holocaust, what Jews suffered under the Nazis. It's not really that 40% of the Americans think that Israel is committing a genocide against the Palestinians. But they hear this kind of comparisons again and again, and they begin to believe it. Now, to take blatant lies and to refute, it's the easiest kind of work. I do it, I did it, I published a book. It's not the most difficult mission. I mean, if you are familiar with the facts, it's not complicated to refute the so many lies. The point is, that many times it is becoming much more complicated. And what I'm talking about when I'm saying it because so many people do not understand the very nature of Israel. And for them, Zionism is a kind of imperialism and so on. What is actually the story of Zionism? The story of Zionism is that at the end of the 19th century, many nations were actually ruled by empires. British Empire, French Empire, Habsburg Empire, and so on. And they were looking for what? For independence, for liberty. They were striving for. Now, Jews were persecuted, as we all know. my family, who came to Israel more than 100 years ago, they came not because of Zionism. They barely knew something about Zionism. They came from Yemen because what? Because Jews were persecuted. They did not come to a state. They were looking for a shelter. So where should we go? They went to the land of Israel. For them, by the way, it was not Palestine. Now, as part of so many other national movements, Zionist Jews were asking also for one thing. For what? For self-determination. And many empires in that time, we are speaking about the First World War, many were striving for self-determination, and all the empires actually in that time began to collapse. When empires collapsed, the outcome was nation states. For many Americans and Canada and maybe also Australians, they do not understand the whole idea of nation state. But the whole idea of nation state is actually something which is against colonialism and against imperialism. We need our self-determination. We need a nation state because we do not want to be ruled by imperialism or colonialism. When so many empires collapsed, nation states were created. And one of them, when we are speaking about self-determination, was actually the Jewish homeland. You cannot understand, for example, the Balfour Declaration of 1917 without understanding the atmosphere, the international atmosphere that recognized the idea of self-determination. So Jews received the Balfour Declaration not because they were Jews, not because they were strong, just because so many other peoples in that time received the right for self-determination. So the whole idea of Zionism was actually against colonialism and against now, in the first stage, when we are speaking about immediately after the First World War, the whole idea of a Jewish state was accepted. For example, there was an agreement between, just a minute. I don't know why we don't see some of them. I'm sorry, we have, anyway, it was accepted by the international community that Jews, as you see here, the League of Nations decided upon that Jews will have a homeland. It was recognized. When we go on, we find out that, I skip all the history because we do not have all the time. When we go on, we find that the first partition resolution was in 1937. 1937, what you see, I hope you see the map. What you see in green is part of the Arab state, and what you see in yellow was allocated for the Jewish state. Speaking about the Peel Commission that decided upon. Now, surprise, surprise, Jews received something which is very tiny, but Ben-Gurion, David Ben-Gurion, decided upon to say yes. Why does he, in 1937, decide to accept this proposal, which gives the Jews a very tiny piece of land? Just think about what we are talking about. Jews were persecuted. Nazis were already in power. What he wanted is a place that Jews will be able to escape to. That's why he decided upon. But nothing came out from this partition because of the one reason. Arabs, all the Arabs, immediately said, no, not even a tiny, tiny place. We will not accept any piece of land that will be allocated for the Jews. It kept on. I will not go to all of it, but we are going to the days of the real partition that was decided upon in the UN in the 29th of November 1947. This is the most famous partition resolution concerning the Israeli-Arab conflict. But again, all the Jews accepted the resolution, but the Arabs declared not only that they will not accept the resolution, but they are coming to exterminate the Jewish entity. Now, as we all know, it was not declared only by one, it declared by so many of them. Here is the partition borders, as you can see. And Ben-Gurion decided upon on May 15 to declare a Jewish state, independence. But nobody knew what is going to happen. And what happened is actually that all the Arab armies immediately invaded Israel. And you can see here what happened in the first stages of the war. Israel was on the verge of being defeated, as you can see. Now, Egyptians, the Egyptian army arrived almost to Tel Aviv. The Egyptian army arrived also to Jerusalem. Of course, they occupied Beersheba and some other parts. The change was later on. And eventually, as we all know, Israel was not defeated. 6,000 were killed. And here are the borders that were created after the war in 49, the ceasefire borders. Now, we have to remember that many times we are speaking about 67 borders. Here are the 67 borders. But it's not 67 borders, it's actually 49 borders. Now, what happened actually? And here we begin with the real problems that the war created. And the problem is, of course, the Nakba. I guess you are all familiar with the name Nakba. To those of you who are not familiar, let me tell you, Nakba is the Palestinian catastrophe because they were defeated in the war. And the main problem actually was created in that time. And the main problem was that 711 thousands of Arabs, I'm saying Arabs, I'm not even saying Palestinians, were became refugees. Now, let me tell you, something like 70% escaped, something like 30% were actually deported by the Israeli army. Why? Because they are part of the fighting armies, because Israel evacuated every place that tried to stop or to fight the Israeli army. But most of them, as I told you, escaped. Now, where is the main point when people until now blame Israel in committing a crime against humanity because of the Nakba? Why is it a lie? It is a lie. I'm sorry, I cannot show you all the stage by stage, because actually we spoke about the collapse of empires. Now, when we are speaking about the collapse of empires and the creating of nation states, we have to bear in mind that the outcome was a huge wave of population exchange, a huge wave of deportations. It was in that time even the norm. so many people were forced out, but it was not only something that was carried out in every conflict between Turkey and Greece, between Bulgaria and Greece, and between so many countries. I'm speaking about the deportation of almost more than 12 million people from all the surrounding countries of Germany immediately after the Second World War. It was also accepted as the best way to solve problems. For example, this person, Fridtjof Nansen, received a Nobel Prize for peace because he actually conducted the population exchange between Greece and Turkey. Do you see the slide now?
Yes, we're looking at yes.
Okay. I'm just wondering if you
see. No, we're seeing the slides that you're changing.
Okay, yeah, it's not the best way, but it's not in the presentation mode, but at least you can see something. The Permanent Court of International Justice which was the highest international court of that time, decided upon that the best way to solve conflicts is population exchange. Why I'm saying it? I'm saying it because we have to bear in mind that the Nakba was part of something which was one bigger. I mean, Nakba was the outcome of every conflict, of every war, of every much, actually, nation state, when nation states were established. So there is nothing unique about the phenomena of the Nakba. And I'm skipping because just some examples. Labour Party in 1944 decided upon that it will be the best way to solve the Arab-Jewish conflict. It was even accepted by many Arab leaders speaking about the 40s, totally forgotten. And Winston Churchill declared in the British Parliament that a huge wave of expulsions will be carried out in order to solve problems in Europe, something, by the way, that of course happened. So there was nothing unique, again, in the Palestinian Nakba. What did we have also in that time? We had the Mufti, Haj Amin al-Husseini, the leader of the Arabs in Palestine. And he declared, we should kill all the Jews also in the Middle East. We shall force them, we shall kill all the Jews also in all the neighboring countries. The Arab League decided upon the Jews in the Arab countries, in the Muslim countries, are going to pay the price. A lot of massacres were carried out against Jews in Arab countries. And what was the outcome? The outcome was that, as we see, yes, because of the same war, because of the same conflict, 711,000 of Arabs became refugees, but a bigger number of Jews also became refugees. Some of them escaped, some of them were forced out, and generally speaking, their property was confiscated. Jewish Nakba, which is totally forgotten. For each 1,000 publications about the Palestinian Nakba, we have maybe one publication about the Jewish Nakba, totally forgotten. And when people do not know, they can be manipulated about the crimes that Israel committed. Yes, but what about the other Nakbas? What about the Jewish Nakba? Again, totally forgotten. Why? Because people do not even know the story. By the way, when they came to Israel, they were in that kind of camps. Nobody called them refugee camps. Why it was called Ma'abarot? Because Ma'abarot in Hebrew, it's transit camps, which mean, no, they're not refugees. They came here, and it's only a transit time before they will be absorbed in the country. Altogether, when we are speaking about the previous century, we are speaking about more than 60 million people that became refugees because of conflicts. No one is a refugee today, except one community, of course, of the Palestinian communities that emerged from the 700,000 to more than 5 million people. Again, it's not about politics. It's about facts. I skip because just to say some words. How much time do you still give me?
Well, if you can, we've got a couple of questions, so perhaps if you can wrap it up in the next few minutes,
okay.
And we'll take a couple of questions.
In how many minutes?
A few.
Few. Okay.
5 minutes.
Okay. Just to bear in mind, I mean, so many people speak about the 6-day war like if it were a proof to the Israeli imperialism. Just what they forget is that the Arab League and every Arab leader in the years before the 6-day war in the 60s declared, we are coming to exterminate Israel. We are going to wage a war against the very existence of Israel. I will skip it because we don't have time.
Yes.
Yeah. I will skip it. I just want one highly important chapter, if you allow me. Something which is highly important for those of you who have this kind of Israel is an apartheid state. I guess you know the man in the picture, Moshe Katsav, who was the president of Israel. Moshe Katsav, which I'm not proud about, was sentenced to 7 years in jail. He had 3 judges. The presiding judge of Moshe Katsav, out of 3, was an Israeli Arab. Why I'm saying it? Because people, when they don't know, they can blame Israel as an apartheid state. Just bear it in mind. The head of Palestine Bank, what is Palestine Bank? Palestine Bank was the bank, the Zionist Jewish bank. The head of the Bank Leumi, National Bank of Israel today, is Dr. Samer Haj Yehia, an Israeli Muslim citizen. Again, you can say a lot of things about Israel, but Israel is not an apartheid state. Okay, last chapter, and I will make it short. Even when people say Israel has the right to defend itself, they say again and again, well, you do it in a very disproportional way. And I guess you are familiar with this kind of claims because of caste lead operation and so on. And I mean, the most terrible document against Israel was the Goldstone report. Maybe some of you remember the Goldstone report that was against Israel. Now, Goldstone, we are not going to see it because we don't have the time, and the presentation mode is not working. Anyway, he was asked again and again, how comes that you blame Israel in intentionally killing innocent civilians? And then he said, once he said, I have not investigated the US Army, which is good enough. 3 days later, he said, the US Army has gone to extremes to protect innocent civilians. Now I corresponded with him and I asked him, I mean, what are you talking about? And what I did, I skip it because we don't have time, because I compared, there's so many battlefields, and I skip a lot of other things because we don't have time. Anyway, I compared a lot of battlefields of how many innocent people were killed in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in other places, and comparing to how many combatants were killed. Now, I took all the battlefields and I created this, what you see, this graph. The outcome is that Israel killed not only absolutely, but also proportionally, much less innocent civilians comparing to any other battle. Also comparing to what the US did in Iraq and Afghanistan. I sent the numbers to Goldstone and I told him, dear Mr. Goldstone, when you said that the US Army went to extreme in order to protect innocent civilians, you were right. But according to the numbers, the meaning is that Israel went to the extremes of the extremes of the extremes in order to protect innocent civilians. Maybe you can refute my research and tell me that I'm wrong, but if not, maybe, just maybe, you were wrong. It was the only one email that he did not answer, as I expected, by the way. Yeah, as I expected. Anyway, he published an article. Saying, not because of me, but because maybe also because of me, but because of many reasons. If I had known then what I know now, the Goldstone report would have been a different report. He retracted. The only one problem is that out of the so many people that were exposed to his terrible report that blamed Israel in committing crimes against humanity, maybe 1 or 2% were exposed to his article where he retracted. And in a way, this is my last slide. I have many more, but I will not show you now. In a way, he's saying all what I wanted to say, because the main problem is ignorance. People do not know. And when they do not know, they think, not because of anti-Semitism, because they are brainwashed, that Israel is really committing war crimes endlessly. It's a lie. It's a blatant lie. We have to know the facts. It doesn't mean that Israel is exempted from criticism, but facts should be before everything else. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm sorry for all the...
No, thank you, Ben-Dror. We'll close this screen for now.
Okay.
We haven't got much time left, so Jeff, we'll take your question, and we'll do our little promo just before we leave. So Jeff, please unmute and ask your question. You're still muted, Jeff. Okay, now you're right.
Shalom. You mentioned earlier tonight that one of the mega liars indeed was called a mega liar, with the connotation that you would actually challenge him to sue you, which he never did. I think that was a brilliant tactic, for the simple reason I heard Tucker Carlson call the ugliest woman in the world the biggest criminal in the United States Congress. She never sued him, and Tucker Carlson managed to completely discredit the woman. So the tactic, the actual idea of forcing your interlocutors, the anti-Semites, the Jew haters, into suing you, knowing full well that he can't, is technically and tactically and logistically quite a tenable idea. I congratulate you.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. We'll take that as a comment. Ben-Dror, what you've outlined is, we're all familiar with this. It's been going for a long time. Are we making any progress in fighting all of this misinformation and disinformation?
No, we are not. It's becoming worse, I have to admit. What I do, all my work, and not only me, of course, there are many others, Professor Ellen Dershowitz and Stand With Us and other organizations. I'm much more familiar with the US, much less with Australia, but I guess you have this kind of organizations just as well. No, actually, we are defeated. I have to put it on the table. Now, the point is, it's not a positive point, but we have to understand that when we are speaking mainly in the United States against Israel, it's not against Israel. It's also, of course, against Israel, but it's mainly against the US. Those who speak so much against Israel, they, before everything else, they are against the United States. Imperialist state, white supremacy, and so on and so on. And by the way, they give Israel as an example because Israel is an ally. It's not a comfort, I know, but things are getting worse because of politically correctness, because of what we call now, it's not liberals anymore, it's not progressive anymore, it's woke. Maybe you heard about it,
yes.
Maybe not, but
yes.
It's the extreme. So the woke is getting bigger. And I'm not optimistic, not for the moment. I do hope things will change, but right now, they don't care about facts. I just saw one question that I can already answer. Somebody asked, but facts are not making any change. And whoever asked it, I don't know who was it, was completely right. Was completely right. But let me tell you something about facts. People who support the BDS, people who are anti-Zionist, they don't care about facts. They don't care. They lie themselves. But facts are important to so many people who want to defend Israel. First of all, they should be convinced. Many times when people tell, don't preach to the choir, then my answer is, it's the most important thing to preach to the choir. Because many times when I meet first-year students in the United States, they are not anti-Zionists, they are not anti-Semites. When they do not know the facts, they can, in a short time, become anti-Israelis. All what I do when I preach to the choir, as people say, I immune them. I give them information. Now, when they will hear that Israel committed a crime against humanity in, I don't know what, in the war, in the Nakba, they are already immune. They know that they are manipulated. They know that we are speaking about a lie. So facts are important to the people who are interested in facts.
And yet you would think that the facts are, well, I mean, facts always used to be the most important part about any rigorous debate and investigation. Everything hinges on facts, yet it seems to have changed. And you mentioned Gaza, and as you say, we always hear that it's an open air prison. But I follow a couple of Palestinian Facebook pages, and they show pictures of Gaza. It's beautiful. It looks like a fantastic beach resort, and yet you can show people this, and it doesn't change their mind. I mean, how do we deal with this?
How do we deal? I mean, look, if it will be the job of very few people like Dershowitz, like me, I don't know, some of you. No, it should be the work of so many people. I mean, we should, you should have a seminar with graduates of high school before they go to university. I'm just giving you something that we already did in the United States. And then they can be the people who can defend Israel, because when they get to university and they are exposed to so many lies, no pictures that you will show them will help. It's useless. We have to do it before. We have to do it in the stage when they are not yet brainwashed. It's not simple. It's not easy. I mean, it's not, I mean, I'm expert to facts. I'm a researcher. I'm not sure that I'm an expert to tell you exactly how to change people's minds. No, it's not my expertise. It's not, but I know, but I'm experienced with what we did in some places in the United States and in Europe. We took a lot of young leaders to Brussels to a seminar of a few days. Each one of them can defend Israel in the level, I don't know to say in the level that I do, but in a much higher level, because he is immune, he is informed, he knows the facts, he can go on with it.
We've had a couple of questions, Ben-Dror, about your slides. Everybody likes them. Are you able to share them at all in some way?
You can find it in the internet, Ben-Dror Yemini presentation, and you will find it all.
Okay, so tell us where you have a website.
No, just do Google. Yes, okay. I have. You will find my but they are already in some places, not in one place. So, but put my name in the correct spelling and put presentation slides, and you will find it.
Okay, I'll just hand over to Robert to formally thank you and give us an update of what's happening next week.
Yes, Ben-Dror, really important talk, really enjoyed it. And as you can see from the chat, so did everyone else, a lot of positive feedback. People asking where they can get your book and how to follow you, keep up to date with you.
Okay, a book is very simple. It's only by Amazon, only. Now, it's only by Amazon. Just put in Amazon "Industry of Lies," Ben-Dror Yemini, and you will find it in Kindle or not Kindle, but it's very simple. But only Amazon. Only
Okay.
Amazon.
And you've got all the social media. Everyone can follow you on
Yeah.
Twitter and things if they find you. And just want to give everyone an update about what's happening next week. And also just make sure if anyone wants to support AJA, definitely give a donation. Go to our website, jewishassociation.org.au. You can sign up. You get free email lists, so you hear about things like this. You can become a member. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. We're growing a lot recently, so make sure you're a member and all that. And we've had a couple of in tomorrow's newspapers, there'll be a few AJA stories. So in the Australian, which are connected to tonight's topic as well, in the Australian, there's going to be an article. We took some action against some quite extreme statements from a university professor. So there's an article about that. And in tomorrow's Daily Telegraph, and probably also in the Herald Sun and the other related newspapers, there'll be an article about some action we took against the ABC, so hostile media and academia, where AJA is taking action against all that. Next week, we have Rabbi Leo D, a very special speaker. I'm sure everyone's familiar with him. For those not, very recently, his wife and children were killed in a horrible terrorist attack, and he's become a great speaker, speaking about unity and important topics. So make sure you join us next week. So thank you again, Ben-Dror. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Alan.
Yes, thanks, Ben-Dror. Look, thanks for your time today and your very insightful analysis of the hostile media that we all have to face. You have a very powerful message, and we wish you all the best in getting it out there. So, on behalf of AJA, thank you very much, Ben-Dror Yemini.